So really interested to hear about how the relationship and opportunity started with AutoVitals, because it seems like you were partnered with a private equity firm. You're still partnered with a private equity firm, and that led to perhaps the investment and then your assumption of the leadership position. Maybe that's a good place to start.
Sure. Great. Yeah. I had taken a role with Tritium Partners. They're a private equity firm based in Austin. They had built up the private equity practice over at Austin Ventures in a number of years ago. And then they kind of went out on their own, have raised three funds. And I was a CEO partner with them, which meant I was essentially helping them evaluate markets and companies and opportunities. We had created a thesis. In my previous company, we had done a roll up of a number of SaaS businesses. This was a while ago. And we were thinking about trying to recreate the same kind of magic, but in a different space, a different market. So we looked at tons and tons of different markets, and we landed on the automotive repair and automotive service market, for a couple of reasons. It had a lot of what a private equity group would be looking for and a technology executive would be looking for. It was a massive market. There's somewhere between 100 and 200,000 auto repair and auto maintenance shops out there, depending on how you count them. It's a highly fragmented market. And they were, the market and those shops were really in an interesting point of the, I guess you'd call it technology adoption curve, where they were showing real signs of leaning on and relying on technology to grow their shops and to perform better. But there were still tons of shops out there using paper and pencil or whiteboards or maybe Excel. So the market seemed really, and again, the technology market was very fragmented as well. There were no 800-pound gorillas. Maybe there was an 18-pound gorilla kind of lumbering around, but we thought, this is a pretty winnable market. And then we really honed in on AutoVitals for the primary reason. I mean, really two reasons. The primary reason that as we did market interviews, whether it was with shops, clients, potential clients, partners, maybe franchise organizations like Meineke, or coaching organizations like ATI. And when we did our interviews, two things came back constantly. One was the player that makes the biggest impact on what we would call a shop's success, right? So driving up the revenue or customer retention or profitability, that really was AutoVitals. Always came back to that. And then when we asked more questions about AutoVitals, they said it's incredible product market fit. And maybe there's a little bit of opportunity to continue to build out some of the operations of the business. So that might have been, we had great customer success people who really cared about the customer, but maybe they needed a few more systems internally or some processes or, training or things like that to make them as effective as possible. Maybe same thing on some of the technology sides, like incredible technologists, but we needed some people who had scaled some businesses and done that. So it was a really good fit between the AutoVitals founder and the investors and board members on the AutoVitals side and the Tritium folks and myself. And, my coming in an operating role wasn't a requirement of the deal. I mean, I was happy to take a board seat. And the founder and their board, said, "Hey, this seems like a good fit. Would you be interested in, coming in an operating role and being the CEO?" And I said, "Great." And one thing led to another, and here we are.
Going into a company like this that has, great reviews from its customers, the product market fit is absolutely 100% there. Do you hit on go to market? Do you hit on, acquisitions? It didn't seem like product improvement, was necessary at that time. So
Right.
what are the kind of first few things you were looking to do?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the product market fit has been great. Again, the founder and the team that was here and is here, so innovative. So it wasn't really about that as much, particularly early on. It's maybe a bit more about that now, 5 years in, but it really was about ensuring that we had the right, I mean, again, I say processes, but, processes and tools and systems and, management layer and training for the team, because there really was a great team in place. We brought some additional people in, some people, as is often will happen, some people maybe weren't the perfect fit for the way we were going to be driving the business. But so really kind of bringing a lot of that in. There was a bunch we needed to do in terms of, it might have been getting Salesforce in place or getting the right accounting platform or HR, processes in place, those types of things, making sure that we had all the right benefits and the right comp structures. I mean, just making sure we had a great team, because that was the foundation. And then making sure that this was going to not only be a great place for them to work right then, but to build a career, building out career pathing and tracks and those type of things. So that was really important. And then, just continuing to go out and build up the relationships that we had in the industry. And, the team and the organization prior to the investment, it was like innovative. We're going to move fast, and we're going to break some things. And that really served the company well in some ways. But I think there were also customers who said, well, maybe we can go a little slower and maybe not break things quite as much. And I think that's been great for customers too. But, honestly, the last couple of years, we've really spent a lot of time making sure we're striking the right balance of process and quality, but also continuing to innovate, because that's what put this company in the position that it's in today, and help customers be successful.
And so, has it panned out to how you planned? Meaning, you, I think, started in 2019 with this company. It's now, at 2025. Are you going to continue to own and grow the company? What's kind of the plan, given this is PE owned?
Yeah, great question. Again, conversation that we have all the time. So the business has done very well. I mean, we're really happy with the way it's performed in the market, which is great. And for us, I mean, we're like every company and every CEO in a technology business. I get 5 emails a week from folks, wanting to talk about, and often they're just kind of trying to fill out their little company card and build up their knowledge in the market and whatnot. But I think, I don't know about timing. I will say I think there's a handful of different paths here. One is, I mean, we've done one acquisition. We're constantly looking at other acquisitions. We may continue to kind of expand inorganically. There are a number of other companies in our space that have come to us and said, hey, do you want to throw your lots in together and double or triple the size of our business and, grow this to the size that, we think it can get to, or to just continue to plow forward organically. I mean, we're working on, I mentioned the opportunity to move into other markets. We're doing a lot of work on new product. I mean, like anybody, we're really excited about the AI opportunity in this market. We are, we collect and kind of manage a lot of data. I mean, if you just think about every time a technician and a service advisor does an inspection on a vehicle, we're recording all of that information, and then what the purchase rate is and how many, all the pictures that are being taken. And that's data that, we're really starting to use and take advantage of. And we want to make sure that we want to make sure that our clients are using the tools as effectively as possible and implementing all of our best practices, because they want to drive up their average repair order, the amount of work that they're selling through to their customers. And which, in addition to driving up their revenue, it makes their customers' vehicles that much more safe. Right. And because they're pointing out anything that maybe should be getting, any of the work that should be getting done, or, hey, let's punt this for 6 months, but then we can use AI to remind customers to come back in and get that work done. So we'll see. I mean, it's, the market is picking up, I think. We're seeing a lot more activity on conversations. I don't think we need to raise more money. We're profitable. We've got a good growth rate. It's really a matter of if it makes sense for us to include some other businesses in what we're doing, or be part of what, somebody else is doing.
you have a really interesting background. I mean, you've been in leadership positions throughout your career, and you're a competitive, very competitive collegiate athlete. Um, we haven't talked to a lot of collegiate athletes that are now in leadership positions, and I always like to touch on this. Like, what did you learn about team dynamics and how to motivate or inspire a team? What did you learn from your days at Penn?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't get that one a lot. I appreciate that. So, I think the things that folks learn and that I've learned are a couple of fold from sports. One is it's really important to know what role to play when, right? So, like I'll give you an example as a CEO. There are times in meetings when it's important that I step forward and help make a decision or course correct or whatever the case ends up being. But a lot of times it's really important for me to just step back and let others step forward and drive discussions and make decisions because it's important that they are taking ownership of their roles or their position or their work or whatever the case is. So that I think is really important. I think whether it's leadership or just as an entrepreneur or whatnot, it's really important to be able to kind of put setbacks in context,
Mm,
right? So whether that's if you're a defender and you give up a goal or a basket or whatever the case is, or you lose a game, or it's really important not to get hung up on that. And business is the exact same way. And to be honest, it's much tougher. The smaller the business and the earlier stage the business, the much harder it is. I mean, when you're an entrepreneur and you're pre-revenue and you raise some money and you've got 10 people on the team, there certainly isn't a week and almost a day that something doesn't come up and you're like, yeah, this could put us out of business. But you
mm,
really just you got to think about it and then set it aside because it's probably not going to, right? And that's the same thing. Like you make a bad play, you miss a shot, you miss, you blow it in a game. Like you just got to set it aside and move forward, right?
mhm,
And I think that's and just the camaraderie. I think the other thing, I guess the last thing I would say is, in order, I find both in sports but also in business that in order to really push yourself as hard as possible and um, and to suffer through the drudgery of like putting in the extra hours or working really hard or facing setbacks or whatnot, you got to make it fun.
mm,
And I've been on sports teams that we had a lot of setbacks, but it was really fun to be part of the team, and it was totally worth it. And it made. Or I've been on teams that were really competitive, and gosh, it was so hard and a lot of drudgery and hard work and extra hours, but it was worth it because the people I was, whether it was the coach or my teammates, like they just made it fun. And I think it's important to do the same thing at work. Like when we hire somebody new and I'm getting to know them and I spend on them, I'll say, look, you'll notice like I'll make a bunch of jokes or ask lighthearted questions or poke fun at folks or myself. And I was like, don't misinterpret that for the fact that we're kind of screwing around here. Like we want to make it fun because that allows us to really sort of drive hard to be successful.
mhm.
And and it's the same for me. Like I want to be excited about showing up for work every day and I want to like the people I work with and enjoy my time with them.